In this video, we're going to talk about how to decide which features to include in your app. And the goal here is less is more. Don't try to throw too much into your app. Now, it would be great to be able to put every single feature in our app that we want, but let's keep in mind there's a trade-off. Traditionally, there's a software development triangle that says features, time, and money, pick any two. But you've probably seen this before, worth mentioning again. Here's my interpretation of that triangle. Features, time, and quality, pick any two, but one of the two has to be quality. So you can have a whole lot of features and good quality, but it's going to take a lot of time. Or you can get an app out quickly with good quality, but it's going to have a limited feature set. So these things are a trade-off, but the one thing that we can't compromise on is quality, because quality is going to have a direct reflection into our very valuable Play Store ratings. Bad quality will reflect very quickly in poor ratings, where good quality will typically result in high ratings. Now, how do we adjust for this? How do we take advantage of features, quality, and time? How do we get everything that we want? We can get everything if we consider doing something with the Scrum style implementation, because in that case, we have sprints, where with every sprint, we finish off with a piece of completed work. But a sprint is not very long. A sprint is typically 1 or 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, maybe a month, but never more than a month. After each sprint, we have a marginally better software than we had at the end of the previous sprint. In other words, we add features with each sprint. We don't try to do everything in the first sprint. We just pick a few features and we work on them. But importantly, we do a quality job of them. In the next sprint, we pick more features and we add those to our application and we do a quality job with those. And we keep doing those time and time again and over time, because our application is always growing, technology is always changing. We'll see that this sprint lifecycle works very well with Apple's app design guidelines, where they talk about 3 steps and then iterate. So with each of those, we do get to the holy grail where we get the features we want, we get the quality that we want, and we get them over time as our sprints are progressing over time. Let's start by taking a look at Apple's app design strategies. I like the way that they propose this. First of all, think of every feature that you might want or that your users might want. Brainstorm about what all can be done with your app. Now, keep in mind the benefits and the disadvantages of mobile phones when you're thinking of these features. You don't want something that's just a web page. It should do more than what you could do on a browser. It could take advantage of the GPS that's built in with the mobile device, the accelerometer that tells us how fast we're going, the camera, it's always with the user. A lot of times, even at home, we tend to search on our mobile devices because it's easier to search with that than to get up and use our computer. So these are some of the benefits of mobile devices. Also, we have things like the contact list. Also, we have the ability to integrate data from different sources using something like a JSON data feed or open data. So think of all these possible inputs and use it to think of a list of features that your users might want to use. Now, the second step and a very important step is determine who your users are. So what provides value to them and where can you aggregate data? So are your users consumers? Are they administrators? Are they maybe a company, a corporate enterprise, something like that? Who are your users? Now, part 3, and don't overlook this because frankly, I think this is the most important of all 3 parts. Filter the feature list through the audience definition. So determine, okay, of my users, which of these features are they going to use? Now, I stress that this is important because when I design my own app, I put a whole lot of features in, like the ability to enter bloom dates when flowers are in bloom, the ability to search by bloom dates, the ability to put your inventory online by using the mobile device. So you could use the mobile device and you could say, I have 4 persimmons and I am Brandon's greenhouse. And then on the Plant Places website, it will say under persimmon that Brandon's greenhouse has 4 and this is the size and these are the price. So I did a lot of features, put a whole lot of time into it, and then ended up finding out that nobody used those features, and that time would have been better spent doing something else. So think that very seriously about those first three steps. And then the fourth step is iterate. So in other words, start over, do it again. What features are being used? Maybe we want to emphasize those. What features are not being used? Maybe we want to de-emphasize those features. And what technical advancements have happened? For example, when I first rolled out Plant Places Mobile in 2013 and really designed it in 2012, cameras on mobile phones weren't as good as they are today. Nowadays, cameras are very good, which is a double-edged sword. You don't have to carry around a separate DSLR camera to get good photos, but on the other hand, the photos are much bigger than they used to be. Photos on a mobile phone used to be 1 megabyte or less and kind of grainy. Nowadays, I find the average is about 7 to 8 megabytes per photo. And many times when I visit a botanical garden, I can take 100 or 200 photos. So that can be a very significant change. So when we iterate, we want to definitely think about technological changes that have occurred. We also want to think about what feedback we're getting on the Play Store. Listen to that, react very quickly, because nothing is more valuable than your Play Store rating. And then again, we might want to say, hey, I just didn't have time for this feature last time, but now I do have time for it. So I'm going to go ahead and implement it now. This strategy, this four-step strategy plays very well with Scrum. If you've done anything with Scrum development in the past, the idea that we make a working piece of software and then we iterate and we make a marginal improvement to that working piece of software every time we iterate. Okay, so step one, here's what I did on step one. Think of every possible feature I could have on Plant Places Mobile. Okay, I could search by camera. So you could take a photo and you could search for colors in that photo. Search by photos that are already on the user's device, which I have here called Search by Album. So maybe I have a picture of my house. I want to find plants that have a similar color to maybe the siding on my house or the brickwork on my house, something like that. Advanced search, so search by multiple dimensions. Now we have to be careful with advanced search because we don't want to put too much on the screen, because that clutters the screen and clutters the user's view of our application. So from there, GPS plants, that sounds like a really good fit for a mobile device. View plant collections, view a map of plants. So view plant collections means maybe I'm at the Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Garden. I want to see what plants are there. Or I have a pawpaw. I'm curious what it's going to look like when it is fully grown. So I'll see that Sharon Woods has a pawpaw and I'll go there and visit the pawpaw. View map of plants is similar. View the plants that are near me. Now, offline online toggle. This is an important one because think about walking around campus and being in a big concrete building like Crosley. And if you're in the elevator, okay, you want to give the user a seamless experience. So it always feels like you're online even when you're not. So we want to think about how to do this online offline toggle, how to do synchronization and things like that. Luckily, this has gotten a bit easier lately because we have things like Firebase that will help us to manage an online offline toggle better. Okay, create account. I caution on that one. A lot of times, the first thing that people do when they make an app is a place for the user to create an account, and then they force log on the first screen. I would seriously de-emphasize that. I ended up taking that out of my own application. First of all, most users want to try without having to go in and sign up for an account. So you're adding a barrier if you put a login screen as the first screen. Secondly, we want to minimize click depth. And many things that a user can do in your application can be done anonymously. So why bother giving them an account? And honestly, what I recommend in this case is if you really do require an account, wait until it is required to prompt for it. If you think of something like TripAdvisor, maybe I want to look at things that I can do when I'm out of town, when I'm traveling, but I can do that anonymously. It's when I rate something that I need to have an account. So don't force the user to log in right away. Wait until they go to review something or rate something, then force a login at that point. Okay, and then upload photos. We talked a little bit about that. So, okay, step two, who are the users of Plant Places Mobile? Okay, well, there are administrators, people like me, who are going to GPS a plant and who are going to add plants. Then there are retailers, people who are going to be able to show search by color to their customers, and also who might use inventory tracking. Finally, there's the end users, which is going to be the largest audience, and for me, the one we want to pay the most attention to, especially around usability. So these are users who are going to search by color, users who might want to GPS plants that they see as a hobby or maybe while they're on vacation, and users who might want to see a self-guided tour like a map of plants. Now, I'll emphasize that this is the most important audience. In reality, after rolling the app out and having it out for several years, I found that retailers were very slow to take this up. And part of it is that in the horticulture industry, people tend to be outdoors a lot. They don't tend to be very tech savvy because they don't tend to be behind a computer a lot. So it kind of takes an extra step there. And that just ended up being an audience that didn't use the app as much as I thought they would. Okay, so step 3, what did we decide to do? Search by color using the camera and the photo gallery that's already on the phone. Those are 2 things we decided to do. Over time, I improved that as well. Initially, it would take a photo, whether it was using the camera or the image gallery, and it would just show you the top 16 colors from that photo. Now, sometimes it would show colors like green, which you're not going to use to search for a plant because all plants are green, and also blue. And there aren't many blue flowers, so that search isn't very likely either. Also things like dark black. So over time, I improved this to filter out some colors that didn't make a whole lot of sense. Okay, advanced search was one I chose. This is one, again, that I decided to pull back on later just because it's cluttering the user's view. It's easier to have one text field where the user can search by anything, a genus, species, common name, than to have 3 different text fields, one for genus, one for species, one for common name. So when you're thinking search screen, think less is more. Think how much can you do with a limited number of widgets, and try not to make search a completely different screen. Make it part of the entire user's experience, maybe by having a search box at the top of the app the entire time the app is open, instead of a different screen. Okay, GPS plants, as I said, that one's kind of natural. That's something you would expect to do on a mobile device. View collection of plants, view a map of plants, and then the online-offline toggle. That one I built in very early to make a seamless user experience. Create account, I put on there and then took off. And then upload photos, I didn't do the first time, but I did come back and do that in a separate iteration. The first iteration, you could upload 1 photo per plant. And then the second and the current iteration, you can upload as many photos as you want per plant. Okay, so sprint 2, we see I had this is the second iteration. This is our second time around. Create account, I added that, so I ended up removing that later. Enter bloom dates and enter plants for sale. Those didn't really turn out too well just because it ended up I was the only one who used it. But nonetheless, saved that for sprint 2. And then I decided not to do upload photos yet in sprint 2. I decided not to improve maps yet in sprint 2. But in reality, those did end up coming in a later sprint. So sure enough, sprint 3, to be honest with you, the third iteration I did here, and again, by iteration, I mean going through that entire list of decide all the possible features, decide the users, and then filter the features through the list of users. So by sprint 3, I mean I've done that entire exercise now 3 times. So sprint 3, the big focus there was a realization that I had put too much clutter into the app and it was hard to use. I had put on a main menu, which was really distracting and also kind of gave everything a similar priority. Sprint 3 was, why do people use the app? Well, they use the app to search for plants by color. Okay, then let's make that the very first screen. Let's not bother with the minutia of a menu. Let's not bother with a what do you want to do. Let's just assume that the user wants to search by color, and then we'll have a menu off of that screen that says, okay, here are all the other things that you can do. But more than likely, you're here to search by color, so that's the first thing I'm going to show you. It's the highest priority thing I'm going to show you. So consolidate and simplify, which frankly, had I done a better job in 1 and 2, I might not need to do that in 3. but consolidate and simplify. Okay, upload photos. So that came in Sprint 3. Make the maps better. And then with Sprint 3, I started to work with a Cordova version for Windows Phone. I ended up throwing that away. I ended up finding not a big audience there, but that was part of Sprint 3 was to see, okay, can I grab a wider audience going about this with a different platform? Okay, so we want to think about designing the app for the device as well. We want to think about the tappable user interface. In other words, we want to remember that the user is using our app and a lot of times can't type a bunch of verbose data. So we want to take advantage of things like autocomplete. We want to take advantage of drop-down lists that are pre-populated with some obvious choices, and maybe even we want to sort those choices by how frequently they're going to be used. We also want to think about the multiple devices that will run our app. The one that we primarily think about is phone. Tablet, I've had different feelings about tablet over time. Sometimes it feels like it's going to take off. Other times it really kind of feels like it sputters. But then the wearables is a segment that's come up quite a bit. Now with a wearable, obviously you don't have the same amount of screen that you're going to have with a mobile phone. But these are all things that we need to consider when we're thinking about the possible features list that we might have for the features in our app. So remember that what we're really focused on here is an app that does a small amount of things very well instead of an app that does a whole lot of things not well. So we want to really think about our features, we want to think about our users, then the most important part, we want to think about the features that our users are actually going to use, and we want to think about the ones that they're going to use the most often, and we want to give the user those features right up front with minimal clicking. After we've done this, after we've done a quality job of writing a good app that does a little bit, then we iterate, we think about what features we might want to add next, or how we might want to tune our app to make it easier for the user to use. Thank you.